then stick on the fancy light, which makes it weird to teach. Yopa. Hey folks, just going to do a quick tutorial on a stretch. I'm going to say stretch in inverted commas. One of the members was just struggling with overhead range, so I'm going to tell you a little bit how we go about doing that. So typically in overhead range, the lats can get the blame or play a part, depending how you want to look at it. Your lats are the big back muscle. They attach all the way up here. Big V muscle that attaches all the way down to here. They're what I would consider one of the bridging parts of the body. So because they involve heavily the upper body, but also attached to the lower body, top of the sacrum, people very often just think about overhead range when they're doing the movement, but miss the fact that the pelvis plays a big role in it. So our approach is something I want to show you today, just about how we go about doing things. The main principle I want to get across is that we don't demonize stretching, but we don't stretch much, and we're definitely not just an FRC type of place either, and likewise we don't demonize that. We use some parts of different things to make sense, so nothing is wrong. But there's another thing that people might be missing in general, a thing called pandiculation, which one of the coaches, Kerry, said to me about probably a year ago. It's really cool. It's much more likely to see pandiculation in the animal kingdom, so that's interesting. So I'm going to go through a couple of things with this one, and yeah, let's see how we can improve overhead range. So the main thing is obviously with everybody working from home at the moment, nobody has access to stall bars, but you do have a door frame. So the end of the stall bars here is basically replicating a door frame. I'm going to use the bars, but I'm just going to show you that you would use a door frame and hang off it this way. Okay. So before I go into the actual movement itself, I think the main thing to try to understand is, as coaches, all we can do is offer situations, offer movements, just offer things for the person to be able to take on board to do. So coaches aren't magicians. We literally are giving you something to do so that your nervous system can register whether it's a safety thing or a threat thing, that you can take on board. That goes for fitness, that goes for conditioning, and so on and so forth. So what we're doing here, by saying not demonize stretching, or not demonizing heavy contraction style stuff or whatever like that, try not to put yourself into a bracket of like, well, coach said I need to stretch, so I stretch, and you do that blindly. It's always going to come back down to you understanding what works for your body. Always, okay? So that's why we're educators here as well, and why we coach and we don't just teach a workout. Sounds like a pitch for the class, it's not. So in setting up, right, I'm just going to talk and think about the upper body first for the moment. I'm going to put my hand over my head here, rest my head on my bicep, okay, and then my outside leg is going to go behind me, so I'm like a flamenco dancer. You don't have to laugh at that if you don't want to. And then I'm just going to fall away from my hips, okay? People very often will pull on for dear life here, and they're bending the arm and they're using the strength in the arm. You need to just give in to the stretch, okay? If you need to make it easier, just step your feet a little bit wider. But the thing is, you want to just go from letting the hips go and create this nice arc, like a bow and arrow, or a bow. Okay? So that's one thing, and you can feel like, okay, well, that's a stretch. Thanks, coach. You may feel that anywhere from the hips, anywhere up the lateral line, pardon me, up towards here. You may even get it in the arm. But the main thing that we want to do is explore, okay? So I'm going to let myself rotate or fall into the movement. So becoming like a windsurfer. And back. Cool. So a small bit of rotation just gives me a chance to search where I'm at in the stretch and where I'm actually feeling. So for me, I feel it down here. I know my own body at this stage for the most part, so I know where I'll feel things left to right, and it's going to be different there. If you think about it, your lats insert on your sacrum, all the ribs, they're an accessory respiratory muscle. They're heavily involved in the movement of the lower part of your scapula. There's just so much, right? It's such a big powerhouse muscle, but it's involved in so much other intricate stuff as well. And this is not solely about the lats, obviously, right? When we do our movement, we think, oh, but I'm hitting this muscle, but there are so many muscles involved, not just the side of the body that's opening, but the side of the body that's closing. Not just about that, but also how you're feeling in it, and so on and so forth. So there's loads of little things. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it, okay? So we have the bicep resting on the head, the arm goes overhead, the hips come away, and then we can start to gently introduce some rotation. If I want to get into a bit more, then I can send some kind of PNF signals into the body. So I can depress the shoulder. So the lats are the main depressor of the shoulder. So I can get into the stretch, I can pull the shoulder down to contract, and then I can almost force myself back through. And this is not really what the thing is about. I'm just giving you a few options. So I slide in, okay, and then I can go one lower as well, and you can still do this on a door frame, or I can push myself with this arm, forearm. I just don't want to hit the microphone here, sorry. And now I'm into what I would deem a stretch now, so I can feel I'm at length, but I have not much control. I can engage the lats by pulling the shoulder down and take a breath in, and then I can relax a bit more, okay? Again, this is not the point of what we're doing today. I'm just showing you a couple of options, and then I can search for the next tight spot and do that. One of the main reasons we're saying we're not demonizing stretching is, again, back to that principle of offering the body potential solutions or just things. So it's like, oh my God, I never did that before. One of the fallacy is definitely not the right word, but it's definitely a reason we don't try and take credit for things too much as coaches. Is just like, if we know that you're not doing something, all we have to do is introduce that back into your life. And if you do that consistently, you're going to get better at it. So the thing about someone saying, well, I'm not fit, and well, have you done fitness? Or my core strength isn't great. Well, have you been doing core strength training? So coaching is really easy in that regard of just like, if the person's missing something in their life and you reintroduce it, you're invariably going to get better at it. It's one of those really, really simple things. Anyway, still haven't got to what I was talking about. So the next thing we're going to do then is involve the pelvis, and this is the game changer for this movement. I'm just going to double check how you can press record, because if I didn't, I will be devastated. I did, 6 minutes in. So the pelvis, because your lats attached to your sacrum, and this is where we talk about it being a bridging movement, our passion here is for where things intersect, right? So where the upper body meets the lower body, where fitness meets blah, 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 where emotional, physical needs and all that sort of stuff. Try to always think about the big picture, and yes, it's beautiful to isolate things, but nothing really works in isolation. Sorry, nothing works in isolation, full stop. So with the pelvis, with the lats attaching down here to the sacrum, right, by posteriorly tilting my pelvis here, I've now created a length in here. Right, and if I anteriorly tilt in here, I've created a shortness in here, right? Natural just length and contraction of the muscles. So if I'm to go back to this stretch, I can make it a bit more now without the leg being behind the body, like from ankle answer. I can actually angle the legs like I would in maybe a windmill. So basically 45 degrees here. I can go back into this stretch. Now I can slide into it, so I'm a little bit deeper in it this time. And if all I do is then tuck my tailbone, you see the way it's going to drive me back upwards? And I'm feeling the stretch sensation somewhere where I wouldn't have felt it before in this. And then I can tilt the pelvis, it brings me back down again. Or if I want to explore a bit more, I go from here and I can tilt the pelvis and move and rotate and just explore. Relax the pelvis, tilt the pelvis, and now I'm getting such a different sensation that I wouldn't have got if I thought it was just an upper body stretch. Which brings me to my final point. You'll have seen it throughout the tutorial, but I didn't say it. Pandiculation is what happens in the animal kingdom. You'll always hear animals don't stretch, right? But you'll see a cat wake up in the morning and they'll be like, oof, off it goes, just being a cat for the day. Animals, from what we could tell, will just like hit a range of motion, change, hit a range of motion, off they go. So for us, it's definitely like scientific and biological manipulation to hold the stretch for so long, to calm the nervous system down, to try and create that sense of alchemy around something that was missing. But it may not be necessary, or the first port of call should just be introduce movements at a low intensity where you're feeling like, I know what that is now, interesting. And then your body might take it on board. It might need more of a stimulus, it might not. Either way, it's just a very low stress way of doing things. So if I was to pandiculate into this movement, if I spend 30 seconds in, I go into here, and then I'm just searching. Okay, so I felt the stretch, so I don't need to stay there any longer. I go to here, I can relax my pelvis, now I can feel it up here. I took my tailbone, now I can feel it through here. Maybe I step through, maybe I go lower. Maybe I push myself back through, all the way up. Oh, I feel it up through the shoulder now. Maybe I rotate through this side, all through here. So hitting some rhomboids. Through here, hips up, I can feel it on the front of the hip. Back around, and back. Cool? So in that, I've hit a lovely amount of things involved in being able to bring my arm back overhead. So the whole point of this was to give you, not a really long video, but to give you a lot of options and try and get a bit of an understanding of what way am I best going to make this better. Because strength training is not always the answer. Intensity is not always the answer. People always think, but give me something to do. If, for example, you're a CrossFitter or a type A person or somebody who's used to just go, 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 go. Well, the thing you're probably not doing then is the little more subtle, nuanced stuff. So using that as a nice example of something that can be a little bit more like, I don't understand, this is way too easy. I'm just used to going hardcore all the time. And then the other thing is just test, retest, right? So we'd normally do that in a handstand class where it's obviously very important that we have overhead range. And it's an easy way to say, okay, test, retest. So if you're doing handstands, you can test it. You could test it from a hang but again, it's heavily loaded because it's your body weight, so probably not the best thing to do. Yeah, I don't think there's too much else on that anyway. So main points, make sure you think about things as being bridging movements if they involve the upper body and the lower body. Here's a hint, everything is connected. Don't disregard anything and don't get overwhelmed by the fact that there's so much involved as well. So just little bits and bobs, bit by bit. It either works or it doesn't, and if it doesn't, change one of the variables. So your frequency, intensity, time and type. And if you have any questions on that, let me know as well. We're looking to get out a bit more content over the next while. And yes, thank you very much. Watch out.